Hi friends, my name is Neeraj Gupta. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about a virtualization tool called Oracle VM VirtualBox. So before that, let's talk about what actually virtualization means. So virtualization means making a imitation of something that appears to be, seems to be real, but it's not in actual. So in computing environment, it is the imitation of resources to run services like servers and operating systems. So have in the context of enterprises, so let's assume that the organization has 100 different servers. So we know that to install any server, it requires some set of hardware to run the server. So if there are 100 servers, the organization need to buy and install and run those 100 set of uh, hard pieces of hardware. So it is in cost, it is costly for the organization. It takes consumes so much electricity, it consumes space, and uh, plus the organization is wasting so much resources because uh, the hardware are so powerful these days, but the software installed on it or the application installed on those hardware are not utilizing those resources to the max. So by the concept of virtualization, the organization could install multiple servers, like for example 10 or 8 servers on a single set of hardware, by by which the organization could reduce the cost. Thus, only one set of uh, hardware compared to 20 or 10 set of hardware consumes so significantly much less energy, electricity, and uh, different multiple servers installed on the hardware using by virtualization can utilize the capacity of that hardware to the maximum capacity. And I, virtualizing the virtualizing the servers, the organization can also increase its capacity, because now it can install like 500 or say 600, uh, hypothetically, on like 50 or 100 set of hardwares. So now, um, let's talk about hypervisors. So to virtualize any to actually use the concept of virtualization, the um, it we need to install some set of hypervisors on the hardware, and then install the dedicated the servers or operating system we want to install on that piece of hardware. So there are basically two types of hypervisors: type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. By definition, a hypervisor or say virtual machine monitor is a computer that creates and runs the virtual machines. The type 1 hypervisor is a bare metal hypervisor. So that means it is directly installed on the hardwares. um, with I uh, There is no any layer of operating system beneath it. First, we install the hypervisor on the device or the equipment, and then we have a IP address to connect to that piece of hardware, and then we use management console to connect to that hypervisor, and from the management console we install the operating system or the servers we want to install onto that equipment. And from there we can also mm, from the console we can manage the utilize resource utilization by each servers. Like we can assign uh, the resources to specific servers installed on that equipment. so we can decide which server uses how much of the resources. um, then comes the type 2 hypervisor. The type 2 hypervisor basically distinguishes on the basis of the layer. uh, so in the type 2 hypervisor, we have the equipment, then we have an operating system, and then we install the hypervisor on top of the operating system, as you can see over here on in the diagram. And then we install the operating system we want. uh, like we can go ahead and install as many operating systems and run the operating systems from this hypervisor. So some examples of type 1 hypervisor are VMware ESX, Gen, Microsoft Hyper-V, and the one example for management console is Gen Center, for which is used for the Gen server. The example for type 2 hypervisors are VMware Workstation, VMware Fusion, MadeV, Windows Virtual PC, VirtualBox, and Mocha. So let's now talk about the Oracle VM VirtualBox. So Oracle VM VirtualBox is a free and open source type 2 hypervisors. So by the definition, it is uh, this hypervisor is installed on the operating system you have pre-installed on your machine or your laptop or whatever device you have available. And this software was initially developed by Innotech GmbH and then acquired by Sun Microsystems in 2008 and again acquired by Oracle in 2010. And this hypervisor is available, can be installed on any of the operating systems like Linux, Windows, or Mac. Let's talk about the benefits of this hypervisor. Why would you want to install any additional piece of software on your workstation and sacrifice some resources? So first of all, you can virtualize and use multiple operating systems on a single machine. So by which you once you have workstation, you can install this piece of software, then you can create the space and memory for to install the operating systems, and you can install either whichever operating system you want to install. So say for example you are using a Windows operating system and you want to use say Linux or specifically Ubuntu. So you would not want to go through all the tedious work of partitioning your device, then installing the bootloader and everything, and switch between the operating system. Instead, you can just install this application and you have Windows in the background, and you can install the Linux operating system on top of that operating system using the VirtualBox, and you can toggle between the operating systems as much as you want to as your convenience. We often face some sort of compatibility issues when we want to use a piece of software. For example, you are using MacBook and you want to use Microsoft Office Suite. So in that case, you don't want to buy additional piece of equipment with Windows operating system on it. That would be not really convenient. Instead, you could just install virtual VMbox onto your existing system on MacBook and install the Windows operating system on the VirtualBox and install Windows operating system on that. And you could install the software you want to use on that operating system, and you can always toggle and between Windows, and you can further extend the use of your workstation. Like you can be more productive because you are operating different operating systems on a single piece of hardware. So you can, if you are Linux user, you are but you also have some, you software that you often use on Windows. So you can use this application to virtualize one of the operating systems, and yeah, continue to work on that. So yeah, so those were some benefits of virtual using the virtualization, and the type 2 hypervisor on your workstation. So let's go ahead and try installing um, the VM VirtualBox. So to install this application, you can go to the www.virtualbox.org/wiki/downloads. And so if you have Windows as your workstation, or if you are using OS X, or you are using Linux distributions, or you say Solaris, you can go to according to these links. So since I am using Windows as my operating systems, I will click on this link, and it will start the download. So once the download is complete, you can click on this exe file, and it will um, execute the installer, and from there you can follow the installation process. And once the installation is complete, you have the VirtualBox icon on your desktop. Or so you can double click on that, since I have already that application running in the background. So this is the interface you get to see when you first start this application. So first let's see the context menus. So you have the preference, you can change adjust the preference of your VirtualBox. From here you can change the path for storing the virtual machine. You can configure the input devices for your VirtualBox. You can check for the updates, you can set the language, you can uh, uh, customize the display for this application. You can configure the network from here, and so forth. So since the let's not change anything in here, let's go ahead and try installing an operating system on this virtual machine. So I have already pre-installed an Linux distro called Ubuntu, that is 64-bit. And let's try creating, I will show you how you can create a virtual machine to install a new operating system. So to create a virtual machine, you just click on new. So you can give the name for the virtual machine, and you can choose the type of operating system you are going to install on that virtual machine. So you have options like Microsoft Windows, Linux, Solaris, BSD. I will click on Linux, and let me choose the type of the Linux. And so I will select Debian 64-bit, and we can allocate the memory size for that virtual machine. So let's set it to 2048 MB. For this demonstration, we will create a new hard disk. Let's type the name for this. Let's say Kali Linux. Set it to this one, and set it to again to 2048. Let's hit click on create, and the file location it shows as Kali. And the hard disk size, it recommends up to 8 GB, but let's extend it to up to 30 GB, and select so these are all the hard disk file type available uh, in the virtual box. So you can choose either VirtualBox disk image, VirtualBox hard disk, or virtual machine disk. So the recommended option would be the VMDK. So let's select on that, and again you can select choose one of these options, like dynamically allocated or the fixed size. So dynamically allocated means at the beginning the machine will assign as less resources as possible to the operating system, and as the requirements keeps on increasing, it will assign further resources to that operating system. Once the virtual machine is created, you can see the newly created virtual machine over here. All of the virtual machines are powered off right now, and you can see their properties on this uh, screen over here. So currently I have three different virtual machines. One is Ubuntu, next is Windows 8.1, and the third is Kali. So uh, this is just the virtual machine. Now we have to install the actual operating system on this particular configured virtual machine. So to do that, you can click on start. So the application will execute this instance of the virtual machine, and from here you can either select your mountain CD drive, CD-ROM drive, or you can select the ISO file you have on your hard drive. So I have the ISO file of Kali Linux 2016, so I will open that and I will click on start. So the now the operating system will detect that um, ISO file, and now we have the boot option of Kali Linux. So you let's click on. So this is the installation process for this Linux distro. So let's click on the graphical install. So from here you get the general idea that you have to follow the process of installation of this particular operating system. So let's click on English, United States, America. So this installation will take quite some time because it will configure the network interface card and everything to, so that in order to install this operating system on the created instance. So let's keep the host name as Kali. Let's leave blank for domain. Let's leave the root password as blank. Um, New seniors. Account name as Neeraj. So let's enter the password for the login. Let's select the time zone. Now it will detect the disks that we created for the partition of the installation. So let's use the guided that will use the entire disk. Since we created 30 GB, let's allow the operating system to configure the entire disk. So let's continue from here. Separate partition for home partition. So the operating system has created 10 GB for primary, that is ext4 2.14 swap memory, and logical 19.7 GB as a home partition, that is ext4. Let's now continue and let write changes to disk, select yes. Now the operating system will do the partitioning and then install the files onto the system. And now that the installation is complete, now we can start this instance of operating system. Let's click on start. The system, let's enter the username for this operating system and the password. So now we are running the Linux operating system on this new instance. So we can do all different things that on this instance of the operating systems. For example, we can open up the terminal and do some execute some codes like enter Python. You can use the Python, um, like that, and um, we can use the browser and all the applications that are available. We can install the applications like normally the way you use any other operating systems. Just the difference is this operating system is not physically installed in any hardware, but it is installed on a hypervisor that is installed on a layer of another operating system, that is this Windows operating system. So yeah, let's further explore some features available in this hypervisor, that is VirtualBox. So we can use the preferences to set the preference to customize the application as per our need, and we have the settings for uh, this machine. We have the configuration details and the runtime information of this particular instance, and we can always pause this session or reset this session or shut down this instance. And from the view we can change the view to the full screen mode. Furthermore, you can also change the scale uh, the screen to different modes. You can also adjust the window size, take the screenshot, capture video, or scale to the different factors. You can check the input devices for this instance. You can see the devices connected to this instance. You can configure the network, and there are so many features you can do with this application. Further, as you can see on the screen, that I'm running virtual VM VirtualBox on Windows, that is one operating system. Then I'm running an instance of Kali Linux on and another instance of Ubuntu. So both instances are running. You can see the status from here. So the question is, how many instances can you run uh, at a time on a device? So that kind of depends what is the capacity of the hardware you have, and like since the instances are allocated some memory and hard disk space, and they consume resources based on the kind of operations they are doing at the time. So for example, if one or two, there are three instances running, and one or two of the instances are kind of idle, and third instance is utilizing most of the resources. The three of the all three instances can run at the time, but if all three would utilize large amount of resource, it would make your system kind of laggy and uh, slower in performance. So you have to try it for yourself. How many instances can you run um, on a system on at a particular time? So yeah, uh, this is a great application, great and very powerful application that you can use to make yourself very productive, because you can, using this application, you can, you don't have to compromise between to use the application or give up on the application that those are important to you, or the games you love to play. Because of the compatibility issues, you can always create an instance of the operating system and load the particular software and or the game, or and any application and continue working this way. This way and be more productive. So I hope this tutorial demonstration and tutorial was educational enough, and I hope I could provide some information on what virtualization is, and what a hypervisor is, and how you can install this piece of application to run, and then install the instances of operating system on your existing device. So I encourage you to go ahead and try this application and explore for yourself and see if it fits your needs. Thank you.